queer as the day is long, but
Yeah, fair enough.
it's one of those where, you know, I hope I did a good job. I'm sure I screwed some things up, but you know, at the time, I will also admit at the time when, especially when I wrote the first book, I didn't know sensitivity readers were a thing, which is not really like an excuse, but that was why like it didn't even cross my mind, which is also unfortunate. Like writing is a learning process.
Sure. Okay. Another question that I had. Oh, are you back?
I'm back, but please ask your next question, please.
Oh, yeah, please do.
So I found it kind of interesting that in the first story, the point of view character is the colonel who is working
Colonel
for
Douglas.
Colonel Douglas. And then it shifts and becomes Captain Ramos is sort of more of the point of view character. I found that interesting, and I totally understand, especially the first story is kind of more of a mystery, and it would give everything away had you done it differently. But I thought that was an interesting choice, and I wonder if you have any sort of thoughts about that or comments on how that worked out for you.
I mean, for sure, like the entire reason that Colonel Douglas is the viewpoint character in the first story is because of the big reveal at the end. Because the only reason it works is because we're viewing this mystery through the prism of his internalized misogyny. And that was actually, that Murder on the Titania was the first story that I wrote. It was the one that I did for that challenge that my writing group had. And then like, it was fun to watch him get skunked. But then after that, I was just like, Captain Ramos is a much more interesting character. So that's why my focus shifted to her. And I was like, I'm gonna get Colonel Douglas in there on occasion in some other places, because he does have some interesting character development. I've actually got like a whole other novella that's just like him that is unpublished at this time. But like, I mean, I think it is because Captain Ramos to me is just more interesting, and she is the Sherlock Holmes character, so it's kind of fun to try to write her instead of just having her entirely observed through like Sims's perspective, though he is also extremely fun to write because he is just sad about everything all the time.
Oh, excellent. And thank you again, Bill, for tapping in on the spur of the moment like that. Facebook decided to say no to everything for 15 minutes. So my apologies, everyone. And thank you again, Alex, for your patience. I did want to return to Captain Ramos and or Ramos, if I'm having a nice accent. Was she inspired by anyone in particular in history or in your life? Because she is an incredibly vivid character.
I mean, she is entirely like my Sherlock Holmes fan fiction. Just 100%. And I was just like, I want a character that has that sort of extremely unique way of looking at the world, but is also like a bisexual lady pirate.
She is, I would definitely flirt with her. She is a delight. And I particularly,
wrong.
No, cannot.
With a bisexual lady pirate, I think.
No, she's a winner.
Well, and I also I was like, I wanted her to be Latina, and there's like a whole backstory that I have written for that just has not even like touched on anything yet. But precisely because, I mean, in Colorado, in this area, there's just such a massive Latino population because, you know, we used to be part of Mexico, so unsurprisingly. And, you know, is another aspect of like wanting to write something that felt familiar to me, where again, like when I was a kid and reading stuff that was always like set, you know, on the East Coast or whatever, it was like, where are all the Latinx people in this book?
Right. No, and speaking of representation, it has been a question, I'd say, the entirety of the steampunk genre has been something that people have asked about, since it is a genre that is looking backwards and utilizing the past, but not a strict sense. So there's always that danger of romanticizing really problematic bits of the past and whitewashing history, if you will. And here in your books, you have a lot of great representation. Was that something you thought about in advance, or is it just naturally a wellspring from your personal identity and experiences?
I mean, it was definitely something that I planned from the start. And part of that was because when I started kind of like dipping my toes into steampunk, I was hearing a lot of the conversations. And, you know, and I was trying to kind of, you know, learn as a writer just in general, because I had like, I've written my other novel and went through it in kind of like the post-mortem and looked at it, and I was like, holy crap, there are like almost no women in this novel. And it was just like my internalized cultural BS. So I was like, I want to make an effort that the characters are actually going to look like the people I'm familiar with.
It's really wonderful. And I loved feeling like I was more represented on the page, that people I knew were present, or like people I know. Not obviously, I don't actually know your characters. I just feel like I could. But that these people were really represented, and it wasn't just another story about old, stodgy gentlemen adventuring, which is nice. I like those too sometimes. But this was just a really refreshing and broad cast of characters. I loved that. So thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I should probably open it up for the conversation to the rest of our group. But I'm going to be cheeky. I'm going to ask one last question. Alex, is there any further suggested reading you might have for us? If we've loved your book, what do you think we might want to pick up and read?
I mean, for sure, like, well, my publisher has a suggestion. There's a sequel.
Book 2.
Book 2.
Good. Good suggestion, publisher.
Subtle.
I have read that as well. I have a question about it.
Oh, good. We're going to come around to you, Lady June Squill, and have you ask your question in less than a moment.
God, I'm always so bad with coming up with like books I've read and on the spot. I mean, everyone should read Elise's Egypt books, because those are really good, and that's just like fun, like magical, kind of a little more fantasy steampunk. I really like Pimp My Airship.
I haven't read it.
by Maurice Broaddus.
It's a great title too.
Oh, it's a delight.
We might have to have that for virtual book club. That's a great title.
And then, I mean, like the Black God's Drums, like those.
That was our last book. So good. Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm cheeky and sometimes also terrible. So
it's all right.
Thank you. All right, Lady June Squill, you had a question, so we're just going to dive in.
Well, first I'd like to say, remember that David Lee Summers writes about the West, and he writes about the area that we live in.
That's right.
So he has characters of at least Latin persuasion. I don't remember whether he has. Anyway.
But he has a Zoroastrian character from Persia as well. Yeah.
Catherine, the cover, you showed the book.
Yes.
It's been driving me crazy. Obviously, the man with the beard is Sims, and I'm not able to completely identify the other two people.
Well, depending on which cover you're talking about.
Wireless, the one you said.
The woman in the middle is a slightly different representation of Captain Ramos.
Oh, okay.
This is the one that the artist found. And this is actually Delia. This is Delia Nimowitz.
Oh, excellent. So
which one is Delilah? Delilah?
In the gray hat on the side.
That's Delilah?
There we go.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, exciting.
Not at all what I thought of Delilah looking like, but okay.
Thank you very much.
I did double check it with both the text and Alex before we came up with that. But yeah, they're both done by the same Canadian artist who goes by Canaxa. Her name is actually Natalie Gray, but her business is called Canaxa. And she does a lot of romance covers and some steampunk and some other things. So
fantastic.
Like her
I just want to say, if you're going to ask favorite character, my favorite character was Chippy.
Oh, all right, good. Chippy's a good choice. And you, Lady June, you cheeky strumpet, you know I'm going to ask you your favorite character, and you got right in there.
I jumped right into it, yes. Notice I'm wearing a tiara today.
I did. It's a very nice tiara too.
It is hurting my head, however, so I'm going to switch to a unicorn horn.
Oh, perfect.
I should mention that there is a bonus-free Chippy story on Alex's blog that you can read.
Okay.
It's linked to the video of Alex reading from Murder on the Titania on our website. You can follow it back, and there's a free Chippy story that, because I am cruel and lacking in understanding, I made Alex pull from the original set of stories that came in.
Okay.
So that's supplemental material now.
I look very much forward to that.
Thank you, Catherine. I loved Chippy as well. So since Lady June Squirrel got us off to a roaring start, I do want to know everyone's favorite character, or I'm going to be kind today only. Top 3. There's a lot of wonderful characters. I give you top 3 to take off some pressure. All right. Beatrix, would you like to start?
Sure. I sort of skipped around, and so I didn't read all the stories. So, I mean, I guess I will be unoriginal and say that Captain Ramos was my favorite because, you know, she's the one with the kind of warped attitude that I identify with, because she's warped in a good way.
She is.
If that makes sense.
Grolius, who was your favorite?
Ooh. Well, of course, you know, there's Chippy, gotta love Chippy. But out of all the wonderful characters, I really like the mysterious Delilah. And I hope to see more of her as, you know, perhaps maybe a nemesis and an occasional ally, you know, to, you know, our adventuresome captain. So I think there's and she has a level of knowledge and sophistication and breadth of subterfuge that's, you know, really captivating.
And she's
so I think she's a great character. I couldn't understand that one.
Oh, I said she's very good with her hands.
Yes.
Which can be read many ways. But Carolius is a Tai Chi instructor, so we will go with the martial arts interpretation. Alicia, who was your favorite or your top 3?
I honestly don't know. I only got to read the book once.
That's all right.
It's interesting because there's certain stories I liked better than others. I mean, I'm intrigued by Ramos and who she is and why she does what she does. So I do want to see more of that and read more of that. I kind of liked the Colonel as well, only because what I'm hoping is you have somebody you clearly set someone up who's so Victorian. But by the end of it, at least at the end, I kind of got the impression that this is someone who has this rigid view of the world, and now, because of his experience with Ramos, is beginning to see a larger world. And I'm kind of intrigued to see that change in thought, because you do see a little bit in the last story, unless I completely misread that, but those are
good.
two of the characters.
No, I do hope that the captain, well, Douglas, Colonel, Captain?
Colonel Douglas, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, rank is so confusing. I do hope that Colonel Douglas has a redemption arc in his future, and also learns to enjoy Rubenesque ladies a bit more. So, thank you, Alicia. Great. So, Mr. Bowden, a fellow author here and our question asker, and my erstwhile companion in Virtual Book Club. Who was your favorite or your top three?
Well, clearly Captain Ramos, because she's awesome, but also Sims, because he's very entertaining in a sad sack sort of way. But I also really enjoyed the character of Lisa from the last story, the little person, and I hope we see some more of her in future work. I haven't read Wireless yet, but I do have it. Just not enough hours in the day.
No, sleep is so overrated. Now, in the comments on Facebook, Tracy Benton says her favorite characters were Captain Ramos, Sims, and Amelia, the opera singer. Good choices. Amelia's.
I love Amelia.
Cindy, my dove. Hello, darling.
Hello.
Hello. Who was your favorite, your top three?
Oh, I really loved so many of the characters. It's hard to pick. I think that was what I loved the most about the books is that they're so character driven. I mean, the steampunk and the gadgets and the ships, they're there as supporting and building, but it's all about the characters. And that's the kind of book that I love the most. You know, the twists they take. It's like you start reading the story, and I guess I'm an Agatha Christie fan, and you know, just those little twists. It's like, no, that's not the way. This is the way, and it's like, ooh, I didn't see that coming. I love a book where I didn't see that coming. That is so much better than what I thought it was going to be. That's really what I love. It's so much better than I thought it was going to be. It's like, I didn't even think of that. That's so cool. And you know, that's really what drew me into it. But I love Captain Ramos and Delia, and you know, their whole frenemy thing. I think I love, you know, the characters. They're just so real. It's like, I want to know them. Ooh, I don't like they're real. That's what I love, is they're people, not caricatures. They're people. And that was amazing to me.
So
Thank
good.
you so much.
And if I may dovetail, Cindy, I try not to insert myself quite so much, but I don't read a great deal of mystery because normally I know how it's going to end quickly. But in every instance, you pulled the wool over my eyes. I was constantly surprised by the ending, especially in the first one, when I did not expect that to be Captain Ramos until almost the moment that you revealed. It's like, oh, so good. All right, sorry. Dear Robert, it's your turn.
Oh, it is?
It is your turn, author to author. Robert Darlane is also an author. Bill Bowden is an author, and Karen Carlisle is an author. Both Robert and Karen have been author guests, so I'm happy to have them back. Robert, top 3 or your singular favorite character?
Singular favorite from what I've read so far would have to be Sims. It's a nice twist on the Watson angle to go along with Ramos's Holmes. He's definitely a bit more rough-hewn than Watson, but he's every bit as entertaining, and I like his soft spot for dogs.
Yes, so good, so good. I like Sims because he's a ginger. That was enough for me. I'm such an easy sell. Anne, my darling, hello.
Hello.
All right. Top 3 or your singular favorite character?
Sorry for popping back and forth dinner time. I've read up to the Uglyton Orrery. I haven't read that. I read up to it. And number 1 is Sims. I love the love that he has for his daughter. He even thought of taking the dog to his daughter. And I really like Captain Ramos. I love that. So glad you didn't follow with the inspector dude. I really don't like that he wanted to prosecute for who the gentleman loved. That really got my ire, and I was so glad the second one was her. I cheered when it was her, because the humanity that she has, and you wouldn't think, a lot of swashbucklers don't have that. And just forgive the comparison, but Captain Jack Sparrow, you see this facade, but then there's this soul inside that will show itself, but we get a closer look because we get inside her head. And I really enjoyed that. And then, the dog.
Everyone loves Chippy.
I mean, I really, really enjoyed it because I've been around dogs like that. So I think everybody has. And but yeah, Sims is I love the fatherly attitude he has towards Ramos and towards his daughter. So it touches on me. So I really enjoyed it. And I'm going to continue reading it because I relate to these people and how they work. So I'm glad you wrote this and we picked this. So yeah, those are my 3.
Thank you.
Karen, my dear, it's your turn.
Hello. Hello from down under. I had my breakfast, so that's okay. I like Chippy. We all like Chippy. I'm glad you actually went with Ramos rather than Colonel Douglas, because I don't know, as a writer, I felt that you probably didn't identify as much with Colonel Douglas. Is that correct? Because I could tell by the way you wrote him. So I read that first one first, and I can understand why you put that story first as the reveal, but I didn't really get into that story, and it wasn't until I read the other ones I went, oh, actually, I'm enjoying this now. So I'm glad that you picked Ramos to follow. I've only just, I started reading them out of order after that. I've only partly way through the one with Delilah, and I think I'm going to like her character. But yeah, I'm glad you didn't follow up Colonel Douglas, because I could not get in his, it just didn't gel, that one. So yeah, but yes, he's probably my least favorite character actually. So yeah, Chippy, I think, because yeah, dogs, and I do like that Sims has this little thing for the dogs. So it's just as cute, So yeah.
Thank you, Karen. All right, Laura. Hello, my darling. Give you a moment. There you go. Hello.
So first of all, I wanted to say that I really liked that the first story was from Colonel Douglas's point of view, because I felt that it was important to have someone introducing the world that followed the rules of society and was within those rules, before contrasting it with the way that Captain Ramos doesn't really care about the rules and kind of stands outside of society, you know. So I thought that was very clever. And then I do, like everyone, love Chippy. Everyone loves Chippy. I have a little dog that reminds me a lot of Chippy. So, and then I really like Sims. I like that tough guy exterior, you know, and, you know, trying to naysay everything. Oh, I don't want to do this. But really, you know, he's got a good heart and he really does love the adventure. He just doesn't want you to know it.
Now, there's that wonderful quote, I'll never remember, where he's talking about how, he might talk about how he wants boredom, but boredom really leads to bad things. So he knows in his heart he actually really likes the excitement. It's such a wonderful moment in the stories. It's very illuminating about Sims. I know I highlighted it in my, you know, digital copy. Catherine, publisher.
Yes.
So for you, I have a question. I mean, obviously you must love the work, you published it. But in this day and age, you know, we're all big steampunk fans here, and the steampunk genre is really taking a downturn in the amount that's published. So what was a moment for you reading the manuscript that you knew that you were definitely going to publish this clearly fantastic work of fiction?
Alex, do you mind if I share the origin story?
Oh, go for it.
Okay, so about 1 billion years ago, Alex and I met at a Worldcon, which is the World Science Fiction Convention, and we were sitting around volunteering at the SIFWA table, and I was chatting about this mythical point down the road when I would probably start up my own publishing company. And Alex was talking about this new series of stories that they were publishing with this small publisher. And wacky hijinks ensued, and the publisher did in fact release a couple of the, you know, several of the stories, and then went under, unfortunately. And I started up Queen of Swords Press, and I was plugged away through my first year or so, and Alex sent me an email and said, hey, you remember that conversation we had at Worldcon a zillion years ago? And I said, wait, is it those stories? And so we kind of went from there. What you're looking at now is different from the lineup of stories that appeared in the first, you know, 2 collections that Musa put out. They weren't out for very long, so they didn't really get a chance to get much traction, unfortunately. Or fortunately, from the standpoint of, yay, I've got them now. But I loved the stories. I loved the relationship between the characters. I loved the whole swashbuckling thing in an alternate Colorado. And so I thought, okay, these are things that I can get excited enough about to get them out into the world and introduce them to a new audience. And I do come from a fanish background. I do go to a lot of cons. I go to Tesla Con, and I'm not a 100% steampunk person. I spill over into other things as well. But yes, I'm a vendor at 13 Gears and a number of the other conventions. So I've done a fair amount of reading in the genre, and I've been to the events. That's actually how I know Bill. Hi, Bill. And then from online stuff, which is how I know Robert. Hi, Robert. And yeah, so it just kind of went from there. And the thing I really love about these books is that they really find their people. They're books where if I can start talking to people about the books, and they look at the covers and they read the back, and half the time they go off hugging the books. And it's a wonderful experience to get to sell books that resonate with a readership that way.
It's so lovely. That's a great origin story. Thank you both for being willing to share that. I think we're all like, oh yeah, I know. Tell us the origin story. But also now I know you go to TeslaCon.
Yes.
Yes. I can meet you in person.
Yes.
But also I'm sort of like, how do I lure them down to Wild West Con in Tucson? It's not that far from Colorado, is it? Really? Is it?
I mean, someday when we're allowed to leave our houses.
That's a time that we all dream of. So sorry to derail us a bit. I did have another question for you, Alex. completely tangential, but about the book. As we've been talking about the characters, it occurs to me, I meant to ask this earlier, you really lean into the trains rather than leaning into the airships. It's another refreshing difference. Was that inspired because of the train history of Colorado, or you just have a special love for trains? What inspired you to go trains, big on trains?
I think it's definitely more that when I think about particularly, the mountains, it's like narrow gauge railway. And I'm not like a huge train person. I'm sure, I will say right now that like basically all of my engineering is complete BS, and I am sure, it's supposed to be dumb. It's not supposed to be realistic in any sense, because I was like, if I'm going to write steampunk, why would I make it realistic? But yeah, and mostly it was just like, if you're going to be, trying to get across the Rocky Mountains, of course, flying around in an airship is probably easier, but airships are going to be a lot harder to maintain than trains, which is why we always had more trains than airships. And I don't know. I just kind of liked the image of, chasing someone down a track and doing like, like as the trains are moving, like an invasion and robbery, better than, like dogfighting with airships or whatever.
No, it's wonderful. And I've taken the train from Douglas up to Silverton on the narrow gauge. And so there were some moments where it was like, oh yeah, no, I remember being absolutely terrified for my life on that train.
Oh yeah.
What this is like. Also, goggles are a really good idea. That is what I learned from taking that train. So thank you very much. So I wanted to go around. Everyone should think a little bit. I'm going to do this to you because I do it every time. Think about your question for our delightful author. I know, Karen, I believe in you, though. I believe in you. You're an author yourself. You can do it. So if anyone has a question on the top of their heads, you should raise your hands. Yes, Cindy, thank you.
Mine was the underlying theme of the infected that kind of runs through the stories. What made you decide to put that in there? I
think it was, I wanted an excuse to make the setting a little more claustrophobic, because otherwise we're just like wide open spaces, American West, all of that. And plus, I mean, at the time, I also honestly just had like zombies on the brain in a really horrible way. But, oh, I see a cat. It was definitely, I also wanted to kind of play with this idea of like, it's steampunk, but in a way they've already had their apocalypse and they're just dealing with it and they're moving on with their lives. And they're like, well, that's another thing that's out there, kind of like grizzly bears, and we just deal with it and it's fine. So it's just an element rather than like a zombie story.
And
it's kind of weird.
It is,
yeah, I'm not a big zombie fan, but this was just enough of a theme that it wasn't what it was all about, but it was sort of this persistent backstory that gave it more depth.
I loved how that sort of was a sort of thread that could be explored. It gave the world, as Cindy says, more depth. But also reading this during the pandemic, that we're in, I thought, oh, good, great, seems very relatable right now.
and I mean, it's for sure, like in a lot of the stories, it's just kind of like the background element of like, oh, well, that's a thing, and we, whatever, we've dealt with it. In Wireless, one of the stories in Wireless, like that is the thing, like that's, being outside the city walls and pursued by ravening hordes that are being weaponized and the messed up stuff.
Interesting.
Oh, something to look forward to.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the excellent question, Cindy. Does anyone else have a question ready to go? Bill, I know I already put you on the spot, but if you have another one, you should let me know. Robert, question for the author to author.
All right, this is going to sound a little bit odd, but was the opening of the second story, the one that introduced Chippy, a bit inspired by the tragic story of Marie Provost?
No, because I don't know what that is.
Oh, that's a surprise. I really thought it was. Marie Provost was an American actress who was a star in the silent years, faded quickly into obscurity when talkies came, and was found dead a few years later. And her dog was a bit peckish, unfortunately.
Ooh.
And I really thought that's where you got the inspiration from for Chippy's initial appearance.
I mean, there's a lot of like, you know, you always hear about like the stories of like the old person that dies and then gets consumed by their pet, whether it's a cat or a dog. And I mean, like that was always a scene that really stuck with me in that one X-Files episode, Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. So I think that was just like always in my head, where it was like, you know, well, you can't be mad at the dog even though it's super gross.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it took me a while to get over that opening, but I managed to handle it at the end. And maybe I just knew about Marie Provost because Nick Lowe, the new wave popster, wrote a song about her on one of his albums, which had the chorus, "She was a winner who became a doggy's dinner."
Oh no!
I forgot about that
no.
song.
I must feel bad for bringing it up.
No.
That's amazing. Never feel bad.
No, Robert, do not apologize. That is wonderful. So from the comments on Facebook, Tracy asks, how would you, Alex, react to seeing somebody cosplaying your characters?
I would lose my shit. Excuse my language.
No, totally appropriate.
In a good way. You know, just, I mean, you know, like any writer, you know, be like, you loved my book and you liked it so much that you did a thing. I mean, that's basically, but I would actually be screaming and it would blow out your speakers, so I won't do that.
Thank you.
Somebody did do fan art of Captain Ramos on Instagram, which is actually pretty spectacular. So there is that.
There was screaming.
There was.
Well, Captain Ramos is a character who needs to be cosplayed. It needs to happen. Just
with a captain jacket, like
the coat, the hair, the swash, and the buckle. It all needs to happen.
Exactly.
Lady June Squill, did you have your hand up with a question?
No, I'm just fiddling with my face because I'm not supposed to with COVID-19.
Oh, all right, that's fair. That's fair.
No, I just wanted to say, when you talked about the coat was almost a character, you know, and I love that too. I just wanted to go out and buy or make or whatever a red jacket like that. I thought it would be really cool.
Thank you.
You have the skill, June. You can do it.
Oh yeah, but I'm lazy. I'm lazy.
I actually own, like, from the depths of my Renfest days, I own a Captain Morgan frock coat. So that might be where that all came from.
Is it red?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. I want to see that.
I should have dug it out.
Yeah, you should have.
Well, we'll just have to
but you look delightful as it is. So.
Yes, thank you.
Interesting, because the 19th century naval coats are very, very cool.
Oh yeah. Like
delightful.
Just...
Alicia, did you have a question for our dear author?
Yes. I had a question about the alternate history. Because there's so much in the books that I just feel there's so much material there that I kind of want to see. But you were talking about various duchies and things, and my impression is that the US is this assortment of duchies and kingdoms, and much like Europe before it coalesced into countries. Is that something you consciously thought of? Or was it just a way of not making it the US?
I mean, when I was playing with that idea of there having been like an apocalypse, that I was, what I kind of was heading towards was like, there was, you know, this plague and everything was terrible, and there was just like a complete kind of collapse of society, and then it resorted itself out into, you know, like everyone having sort of their own little private kingdom, because those were the people that managed to like get their crap together enough to have a population that was a walled city and they could survive. So that's how it sorted itself out into that.
Excellent.
I just have one more comment, because you were talking about trains and trains raiding trains. As you can see behind me, I'm a fencer, so swords are my thing.
I know, I've been looking at all your swords, it's amazing.
And that's only part of it. But one thing you could use, because it would be much more suitable for trains than say for airship. Well, even in an airship you would use it, but I can see them using pole arms.
Oh, that'd be interesting, yeah.
Because definitely not so much halberds, because they're more medieval, but some of the later ones have these wonderful hooks and things that would really work in there. Or even things like adlels, which are, it's sort of a, my brain is gone, I have no words. It's like an arrow that gets shot, that gets thrown like a jar.
Oh yeah, the shoulder thrower, yeah.
Yeah. Now, and there is,
That's a good idea.
know, with a rope on that, I know this because I've done this, it makes a nice rope.
That's a really good point.
There are weird things that go on at Rev War stuff when, you know, after you leave.
Alicia, you are quickly becoming our weapons expert. Just in case you were wondering. So, all right. Karen,
pole arms.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I like a good pole arm. I'm short, so I'm not something you can keep people away with. So normally a 6 to 9 foot staff is really good. Karen, did you have your hand up with a question?
I've had 3 questions, all of which have sort of been asked.
Oh,
my first one was, was the first story the first one written, which you've answered, and was it intended as the reveal in that order, and that's what you've answered. Then my next one was going to be the infection, whether it was going to be explained later, and of course Catherine has said and you've said it's going to be explained in the next book a bit more. And then I was going to ask about, did you intend to do the duchy for a specific reason? And now you've answered that question. So
this question blocked you over and over again.
I thought, because it feels like the first one was the first one written. So as I sort of said before about the reveal. So I'm just sitting there going, I had 3 questions. See, I had them written down. See, 3 questions.
So prepared. Well, do you have any questions about, I mean, as a lover of Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah.
From one fan of Sherlock Holmes to another? Do you just take a moment in that? Love author to author?
No questions though, but otherwise, yes, I do love Sherlock Holmes. I tend to, I've been written some about Mrs. Hudson, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just got accepted. Yeah, but the cosplay thing, yeah, I think any author, well, all the authors I know, particularly in steampunk ones, if someone cosplayed our characters, oh my God.
Right?
I know, oh my God, it's like, yeah.
I would do that, exactly.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, I had 3 questions. Yeah, sorry.
I'm very sorry, Karen. If you have another question, maybe it's like just large gestures. All right, I'll come back.
Like Anne's doing right now.
Like Anne is doing right now. Hello, Anne. What's your question?
I wanted to know, I got from the sense that the more upper crust people did the airships and traveled that way and had their trunks. And that the man who was going to sell his daughter off into marriage, he wasn't quite up to that standard. So he had to travel on the train. Did you set that up purposely like that to put them in their different levels of proper or society, or was that just a natural that came along?
I mean, you know, it's kind of, they feed into each other, because, you know, if you think airships are sort of going to, you know, mostly for cargo, but then the passenger space is going to be luxurious. Of course, it's going to be the wealthy people that travel that way. And how is anyone else going to get around? Well, if you don't want to die, you get on a train. So, and even in the trains, there are classes, and there's actually, oh wait, no, never mind, that story is not published. Eventually there will be a story where, you know, you get to see a train journey. But it is very much like I wanted to lean into some of the class existing, because I know it's still kind of weird to think of America with an aristocracy, but honestly we have one. It's entirely defined by wealth. And, you know, just the being able to leave the city at all is a big deal, and most people wouldn't be able to do it. But if you wanted to not spend like 18 hours on a train, then you have to be extremely wealthy, and you definitely, you know, have to have that aristocratic level and be above everything in a literal sense. I hope that answers the question.
That was a wonderful answer. Also, very keen to read more about the classism in your society. Laura, did you have a no, all right. I'm not going to make you ask a question. I always offer. I mean, I make Robert and Karen and Bill ask questions. That's what they get for being good authors. I will torture them. I'm sorry, Alex. Now you know the dark side about me. As they all laugh and nod. Are there any other questions for our dear author guests before we start wrapping up?
Well, of course, there's the question of what's next.
Yes. We have.
I mean, I've read Wireless. I read so fast, and I read so long ago, I don't remember anything except what happens to Girl Toro. Anyway, but I'm hoping for more in that world. I love the world. And I relate, having spent a lot of time in Colorado with my husband, who was a geologist, by the way. Yes. And we used to go to, he taught field camp in the Gunnison area. So.
Oh, nice. That's a good area.
That was beautiful. Anyway, I'm hoping for more stories, and I'm hoping you're getting them published, and I'm hoping that they come soon. How about that?
Fingers crossed. There is one other question in the comments for you, Alex. Brenda asked about the relationship between Captain Ramos and Sims. Do you have a little bit of enlightenment there? Are they just really good chums forever?
Oh yeah, no, they're BFF. They're basically, I mean, Sims is, in a universe where Sherlock Holmes is straight, Sims is the Watson to Captain Ramos's Sherlock Holmes. There is like no interest there. He would rather sleep with a poisonous snake because he'd be less likely to get his face bitten off. But she is basically like, you know, kind of his BFF, his everything. You know, it's Sims and Ramos and Dolly against the world as far as he's concerned.
Excellent.
So, and part of that is really deliberate, because I also just really want to see more friendships that are just like ride or die friendships between men and women, particularly where it's the man being the supportive, the more kind of like supportive partner, you know. So that's why I wrote it like that, because I was like, this is the thing I want to see in the world right now.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, no, I love their friendship. And also I'm biased. I'm just like, Delilah.
Not all has to be romance. That's
Not all of it. Also, we have Delilah. That's all the romance I want. I just, so good. I have one question. I sort of promised to stop being so cheeky. Is Delilah inspired by the woman, since you have your Sherlock and you have your Watson? Is she the woman?
Irene Adler, is that what you're thinking?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. She is, I mean, I'll just say, and I know this can be a controversial opinion, but I watched BBC Sherlock and I hated it a lot, especially because of how Irene Adler was treated. And Delia became my justice for Irene Adler character, where I was like, no, she's going to be an amazing cat burglar, and she's going to like blackmail people, and she's going to like kick so much ass, and then she's going to kiss the crap out of Sherlock Holmes and run away, laughing into the sunset.
She's a fantastic character, and I really am excited to see more about her. So,
and there is more about her in Wireless.
Personal favorite, that's it for me, right there. Chippy is also good, but you know, give me the woman any day. Also in the comments, we have Justice for Irene is now trending on the Facebook comments. You should know that. So as we have reached our hour mark, I always say it's technically an hour, and I like to give the author the opportunity to tap out. If you would like to share anything else, we're all hungry to talk to you. But also, if there are any books you would like to promote, we know Wireless is available, and you must have some other things we can read as well. So if you'd like to tell us where to buy them, we want to know.
I mean, for sure Wireless, because I don't want Catherine to have me murdered by ninja.
That was the plan, but okay.
But definitely buy more Wireless, because if Wireless sells really well, then I'll write more stories.
That's right, everyone. Please buy Wireless. We're hungry for more books.
Well, I already have, and I'm going to read it again.
And then the other thing that I've published, and it's under the name Alex Wells for reasons we need not get into at this time. I have a duology that are titled Hunger Makes the Wolf and Blood Binds the Pack, which are science fiction, labor union on a desert planet, space witches riding around on motorcycles, class struggle is apparently my thing, and rocks. There's a lot of rocks. So I'm really pleased with those. Those ones were published by Angry Robot, and you can just like find them anywhere.
Excellent, thank you. My sort of last follow-up questions: where can we all follow you in the world and keep up with your writing and your elegant, dapper shenanigans?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Katsudonbury, as in like the food, and I tweet way too much. And if you go to katsudon.net, also like the food, that's my website, and there is like, if you go to the writing section, there is just a list of literally everything I've ever written, with, you know, like the novels and the novellas first, and then there's an absolute crap ton of short stories if you're in the mood for a short story to read.
Excellent, thank you so much. And Catherine, Queen of Swords, a wonderful small independent press, bringing us books that we are all clearly very delighted to be reading. So whilst this has been largely a celebration of Dear Alex, may I call you Dear Alex? Thank you. Next thing you know, I'll be offering to buy you tea. Watch out. So Catherine, at this time, as I mentioned, steampunk has been sort of shrinking. So thank you for taking a chance on our little genre and publishing more stories. But also, this is definitely a celebration of the publisher right now. As a long-time celebrant and lover of steampunk genre, one of the things I really adored is you did not publish safe steampunk. You really pushed the envelope and gave this wonderful author an opportunity to bring us the kinds of characters we want to read and not the sorts of characters we're told we should read. Thank you for that. How may we, as readers, continue to support you, a small publisher, in keeping you afloat, especially currently in the sort of terrible world we find ourselves in?
I guess that.
That.
Well, please tell your friends, encourage people to check out Alex's books. I have dropped 10 or maybe 30 not terribly subtle hints that there could be a third collection of Captain Ramos and Sim stories, because I'm known for my tact and subtlety. We do have some other titles out. Some of them might be of interest. None of them are specifically steampunk, but we've got some other things on the way. And, pirates, yeah. We have an anthology of pirate stories, and in April I released a linked collection of short stories by an author named AJ Fitzwater, who lives in New Zealand, and they are dapper lesbian capybara pirate stories, and they are awesome. They are not steampunk, but they are awesome in their own way. And they're just like warm, cuddly, fictional hugs. I mean, they're really just, they're definitely stories for our time.
Oh, we need capybaras. Yes.
Yeah,
we need capybaras.
We too.
So that's out into the world, and then there'll be some more books working on things right now, and we'll hoping to have the next novel out by the end of the year, and working on an anthology for next year, and maybe Alex will do some more stories, and that would be really cool.
Yes, Alex, that would be very cool.
I just bought.
Thank you. So as I release you back into the world, and in the comments on Facebook, some people are sharing the links to all of these wonderful places that we've mentioned. I promise I will post links onto my social media for all of you to find Alex and Catherine at Queen of Swords. But as I send you out into the world, the big thing you can do as readers is go review Alex's books and tell everyone to buy them. And as steampunks, I know I've mentioned it twice, I too am a creature of subtlety, as you can tell by my hat and my makeup today. Steampunk has been on a downturn. Bill, Robert, Karen, probably Alex as well, all know that it's harder and harder to get steampunk novels, short fiction published. The best way we can get more published is to read more. And the best way we can get more really good stories to be published is to read stories like Alex's, like Robert's, like Karen's. So please go forth, review at least one novel this week. That's as serious as we get. I'm going to shake my finger at you virtually through a screen. Review them in a place that people can find it, and tell all of your friends to pick this up. With that said, thank you all for being here tonight. I release you from the Book of Faces. Alex and Catherine, if you have a moment after, I'd like to talk to you after we're done as well. All right, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Laura, Karen, Anne, Robert, June, Alicia. Thank you, Tracy, Brenda, Sarah, for all being with us in the comments on Facebook. It's been really delightful.
Everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Alex and Catherine, for being with us.
Yes, thank you.
For having us. Primarily Alex, but both of us really.
Thank you.
Thank you.